Today, let's find out how each state moved at a presidential level between 1948 and 2024. We're going to go from Harry Truman all the way to Donald Trump's second term. It's a long time, a lot of data. There's going to be a map at the end and a chapter down below in the description if you want to skip ahead. But as always, we've got to get some background information so we know what we're talking about. The one you're going to be way less familiar with is 1948. This was the famous Dewey defeats Truman election. Harry Truman won his only term. He finished with 303 electoral votes. He got 28 states, and it was worth 49.6% of the popular vote, so just under a majority. And Thomas Dewey got 189 electoral votes out of 16 states, and that was good enough for 45.1%. Now, this also gets tricky because we do have third-party candidate Strom Thurmond down here. He's not the National Democrat, but he does represent the states' rights Democratic Party, and he actually did carry 4 states worth 2.4% of the national popular vote. So that makes it a little bit tricky in those southern states. We'll come back to that in a minute. Then we've got 2024, the re-election of Trump. We're not going to go over all that, but of course it was 312 for Trump, 226 for Harris. Trump got the popular vote by 1.5. So that's going to take us to this fabulous looking spreadsheet. We've got the states on the left. Then it's the 48 vote for Truman, then for Dewey, then the 24 vote for Harris, then Trump, then the shifts for the Dems between those two elections, followed by the Republicans. Then finally, we've got the net shift or the swings between the two parties between the two elections. And this column has shading. The darkest colors are 10 or more points. The lightest are under 5%. Now let's start in Alabama. And for this one, let's break it down. Now technically, Strom Thurmond won this state, but he was not the National Democrat. Again, you can see here his alliance was states' rights Democratic. So the data I use on the sheet is for the National Democrat. That's not Thurmond. So to be consistent, I've got to put in a 0 for Harry Truman. So that's how we're going to do this. So on this sheet, nobody technically won the state between Dewey and Truman, but Dewey did get 19%. Then if we go ahead 7.5 decades, Kamala Harris got 34.1 and Trump won the state with 64.6. So it's a little murky, but the Dems did gain 34.1, Republicans gained 45.6. Between those two numbers, that comes out to a net swing toward the Republicans of 11.5%. It's only going to be confusing in the 4 states that Thurmond won. The other 3 are Mississippi, Louisiana, and South Carolina. Now, with that said, let's quickly go through the rest of the states. And remember, only 48 of them this time, and also no D.C. Arizona swung toward the Republicans by 15.6. Arkansas had the biggest swing out of all the states. That went a gigantic 71.3 toward the GOP. Now, we've got some blue swings. We've got California at 19.7, Colorado 5.6, Connecticut 16.2, and Delaware 15.9. Then it's a lot redder in Florida at 28.3, Georgia 44.7, and Idaho 39.1. Illinois was an even 10% toward the Dems. Then it was redder in Indiana at 18.1, Iowa 15.9, Kansas 7.2, Kentucky 45.7, and Louisiana 37.3. How about some blue swings in Maine at 21.3, Maryland 29.9, Massachusetts 13.7, Michigan, they had the absolute smallest swing out of all the states. Almost zero movement here, just 0.2% toward the left. Then it was redder in Minnesota at 13.1, Mississippi 30.4, Missouri 35, Montana 29.8, Nebraska 12.3, and Nevada 6.2. Then New Hampshire decided to get a little bit bluer at 8.6, as did New Jersey at 10.3. New Mexico was redder at 7.5, New York bluer at 13.5. Then more swings to the right at North Carolina at 28.5, North Dakota 27.7, Ohio 11.3, and Oklahoma a massive 59.8. Oregon did move toward Harris and the Dems at 17.7. Pennsylvania, same direction but way smaller at 2.3. Rhode Island almost the same, but toward the Republicans at 2.5. Then more double-digit GOP movement in South Carolina at 38.1, South Dakota 24.4, Tennessee 41.9, Texas 55.4, and Utah 30.2. Vermont had the biggest movement toward the Dems, coming in at a monster 56.1. Virginia, just a little bit of red movement there at 1.2. Washington, a little bluer at 8.3. Then we'll finish it out with some red swings. We've got West Virginia at a pretty big 57, Wisconsin 5.3, and Wyoming is way back up there at 50.1. Then it's your national swing, coming in at 6% toward Trump and the Republicans. So those are all the states and all the shifts. Now let's do what we do every time. We'll take it all, we'll put it on a map to help visualize. Here's what we've got. It's similar shading, this time 4 levels of it. The darkest colors are 10 or more. The lightest this time are under 1%. This is the current electoral vote map. States that went toward the Dems total 221. Republicans come out ahead at 307. So a lot of red movement out here, as you can see, throughout most of the middle of the country. It's pretty much just the West Coast and the Northeast that has all the blue. Then you've got Colorado and Illinois, plus Michigan. They had almost no movement at all, less than 0.5% toward the Dems. So pretty impressive that throughout all those elections, they were comfortable staying the same. Of course, again, in the South, Strom Thurmond does complicate things, especially in those 4 states. But other than that, of course, the South got way redder. It's also in a lot of the Midwest and the upper Great Plains, even into the Southwest this time. The 3 Rust Belt states all did something different. Wisconsin, moderately redder. Michigan, just a tiny bit bluer. Pennsylvania, even a little bit bluer than that. But what about the state of Rhode Island? That state stands out amongst the blue Northeast. Somehow they decided to get a little bit redder. It's not by a ton, but it's completely different than the other blue states. It's almost impossible to really compare these 2 different political eras when there was so much in between. Plus, remember, it looked like Dewey had defeated Truman at first, but then Truman was able to secure another term for the Dems following the death of FDR. And I didn't mention it on the sheet, but Truman's home state was Missouri. Dewey's was New York. He was also the governor of that state, but he only squeaked by and just barely won it. There were a lot of competitive states in this election. A bunch of states had different reasons as to why they moved in these different directions. There were 1 or more political realignments across almost the entire country. But this video is not about the why. This is just about what happened. This is how the map looks between 1948 and 2024. So let me know in the comments. What do you think about all the movement across all these elections? Does anything stand out to you aside from the usual red South and the blue coasts? Why do you think some of these states moved 30 or 40 points in one direction? Why do you think others moved less than 10? How much of a factor were the candidates in this election? What about any specific issues? Let me know what you think down below. On your way out, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Join if you'd like to support the channel. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.